All right, man. Kevin Durant hints at want to join the Pistons. We get there in a minute. There's multiple reports that Durant is interested in playing with Cade Cunningham. I spoke on that before. Shout out to everybody that joined the live show. I think we did it Sunday. Had to go off on Slim, whatever that dude name is. I had to go off on bro. These niggas love the attention, but they be trying to act like they know basketball, bro. If you really under 30, it's nothing that we can talk about. Really under 35, it's nothing. I just say 30 would be nice. If you under 30, it ain't nothing you can really tell me about basketball, bro. So I would just be like, just shut the hell up and listen, right? Especially when you start talking about positions and stuff. Oh, no, it's going back to power back. No, it's not going back to that, not right now. But in general, KD would love to pay for the Detroit Pistons, and play with Cade Cunningham. I mean, we already know he showed Cade Cunningham love in the past. I think we all, him and Kyrie, when they played in Brooklyn, they came and showed, him plenty love, man. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by it at all. Kevin Durant's interested to play Cade Cunningham. Why, the Pistons think the KD experiment will work for them when it hasn't worked for anyone else is beyond me. I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't excite. It wouldn't excite me, however. And I think I feel the same opinion. And I made a very, very interesting synopsis about it as well too. And one of my synopsis that I had about this situation was this. If you was to get a guy like Kevin Durant in your locker room, you would want to keep a guy like Tobias Harris because Tobias Harris keeps the locker room together. So you would want to keep a guy like Tobias in that locker room, just off the strength of keeping it together. And now you don't have Tim Hardaway Jr., you don't have Isaiah Stewart, you don't have, Tobias, Malik Beasley, you don't have those guys in the locker room anymore. I think it becomes somewhat of an issue. I think it becomes somewhat of an issue when you don't have those guys in your locker room. And this is why I kind of was pushing the Drew Holiday thing. Is because, people say, well, they need a scorer. And also some of you guys say they need a ball handler. No Diddy. Some of y'all say, well, yeah, they need a ball handler. And I don't disagree with that. But some people say they need a ball handler. Drew Holiday shot at 38% from three last season. Outside of shooting for 38% from last, season, he can handle the ball. He can distribute. He can play off the ball. He's been a scorer at points in his career. He's kind of morphed and kind of, being that true point guard. So I just think he fits multiple points. Now, is he exactly what the Detroit Pistons need? I mean, no. I would say you just need a flat out bucket getter, a guy like, Zach LaVine, a guy like a Malik Monk, a guy like just a guy that's in that vein that's just a flat out bucket. But also one of the reasons why this kind of works with Kevin Durant, and what makes this is why you can kind of go a little bit older with Durant, Kyrie, who else I was saying? Kind of these older guys, Drew Holiday, and he's looking at CJ McCollum, and I think they may have regretted not trading for CJ McCollum at the trade deadline last year. I think they're gonna regret that, right? You didn't mind, looking at a Norman Powell. One of the reasons that you didn't mind it was because you had a Buko Corey, especially when you start talking about McCollum, Powell, Holiday. They kind of in that mode of a Buko Corey, the height and kind of what you want to be. And that's why I kind of really feel like when you start talking about Shaedon Sharpe, Zach LaVine, I'm kind of really turning up to the idea, even over Kevin Durant, a guy named like Drew Holiday, because he can really, bring a lot to the table. He can bring a lot to the table for a guy like, even Cade Cunningham, even Dennis Jenkins. The character is high. You know what I'm saying? So you sitting there, you got a guy with high character. And then, also when you continue to go, you got a guy that can shoot it, can handle it, can score it, just steal a little bit. And then, in a couple of seasons, the contract is probably opt in his player deal if he like it here. The contract is probably, is for a couple more seasons. And, after that, you should be able to hand the baton over to Abuka Corey. You should be able to hand that baton over to him. You smell me? So, that's my opinion on it. You should be able to hand that baton. But KD is similar. You should be able to hand that baton over to Abuka Corey after a while. He can play next to Cade Cunningham. But in general, regardless, unless you go out there and get a guy like Shaedon Sharpe, if you get a guy like Kevin Durant, if you get a guy like, let's just say, a guy around McCullough, or you get a guy around, Drew Holiday age, I think it's imperative that you have to integrate Abuka Corey, especially if you don't get one of these guys. You got to integrate Abuka Corey. He can't be in that Marcus Sasser role. You have to allow him to play and get his feet wet because you about to pay Durant. You about to pay Asar Thompson. You about to pay these guys. So you going to have to be in-house, and you're going to literally have to prepare him. You're going to have to prepare him. He's going to have to get prepared. But in general, they got to prepare him. Now, if you go with Zach LaVine or you go with Shaedon Sharpe, then that buy you a little bit of time. Then at that point, if Asar Thompson doesn't pan out, or something happened if it don't pan out, then maybe you just knock Cade over to point forward, Shaedon Sharpe, Abuka. It's all positionless. I'm just saying, so. But this is Kevin Durant. He posted this on the social media. Shout out to Piston Jack. And what a Detroit hat on. Now his brother also, we did a video earlier this year. His brother was saying, the Pistons better not get eliminated in the first round. If fans talk too much shit, we know KD said when he played for the Thunder, who care about Detroit? Now, at the end of the day, a lot of that's going to be water under the bridge if you come here. But just know with him wanting to come here, you got to remember he playing for something. His legacy is on the line. You know what I'm saying? With him wanting to come here, that's a huge thing. Wanting to be here. I think the Pistons, depending on what they give up for him, they would have enough to carry him through the season and get them to the playoffs. I know somebody mentioned in the chat that in the playoffs that Kevin Durant hasn't played that much, but you just need him. You just got to get him there. So he can play anywhere from 50 to 65 games. You're perfectly fine with that. But what you must remember, what you must remember is this. I think people must really remember this with him. You have to at that point be developing Abuka Corey or Ron Hollins to take over that position. They have to develop. This is temporary. So don't forget it's temporary. So it is what it is. Let me know what you think. Check out Detroit Piston Talk playlist. Find me on X, Facebook, Kick, Twitch, Instagram, Spotify, Anchor, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. Appreciate the love and support. Peace.